Okay, everybody, welcome back. Hey, I'm really curious to find out how your homework went. By the way, if you had any difficulty with that homework, I've posted just below Module 1 in the course, I've posted a little guide of, at least right now when this course gets posted, this right now, what you can do to go and find those Facebook statuses and be able to search those. So if you had a hard time, pause the video, go back, make sure you do that homework because you committed to me you would, and go do that because I just want you to see what is the language that you're generally using, and it could be a pretty good gauge for how you're interacting with the world, okay? So, in part 1, we talked about there's only 1 in 3 of us that consider ourselves happy, and we talked about some of the reasons why maybe Americans aren't as happy. It's how they view the world through the eyes of Facebook and one-way communication, and reality TV being total fiction, but we perceive it as reality and think our lives aren't as good, and the evening news and how it bombards us with negative and we don't get the positive stories, and all of that can culminate into us feeling a little bit negative. Well, in this part, we're going to do something different. In this part, I'm going to share with you a piece of my heart. And in this part, I'm going to share with you a abbreviated version of a story that I wrote for my book, Flipping the Gratitude Switch. It's a story that I call A Tale of Two Men. And I generally, as I speak on Flipping the Gratitude Switch at schools and corporations and for church groups, I usually will start my talk with a tale of two men. So I felt like we had some groundwork to do before I got to this tale for you, but I'm going to tell you a story now. I'm actually going to read. I'm going to put slides up on the screen, and I'm going to kind of read it because I don't want to mess it up. And I'm going to walk you through the lives of two men who lead very different lives. Now, here's what I want you to pay attention to as I go through their story. I want you to pay attention to, although they lead very different lives, what are the similarities? What are some of the things in their life that are kind of similar? And then I want you to also pay attention to what are the big gaps? What are the big differences that they have between one another? Okay, so are you ready for a tale of two men? Here we go. Tale of two men. We got this guy and this guy. One looks like he's happy, he has a laptop. The other looks a little frustrated, maybe he has a headache. Let me tell you about him. Both men awake. Both men live in a 5-bedroom, 2-bathroom home. Man number 1 has a beautiful home, a perfect size for his growing children and beautiful wife. Man number 2 has a home in need of repair and is worried at the prospect of financing the necessary repairs. Maybe one day he could finally buy a home that would more comfortably fit his growing family. The first man lays in bed for a moment and feels his healthy heart beating, takes a deep breath of fresh, cool oxygen, and takes a moment to marvel at his fit and healthy body. The second man lays for a moment and runs his hands down his ribs to his big belly, an excess of weight that he just wishes would disappear, but knows that with his busy life and overworked lifestyle, that exercise is nothing more than a hope and a dream. Both men, in their own time frames, in their own homes, in their own lives, roll over to see that the clock says it's time to get up. Man number 1 feels the rush of excitement that accompanies the start of a new day, where he lives his dream life and he does his dream job. Man number 2 dreads spending another day at a job he hates, working for too little pay, and for people that don't see his talent or appreciate his contributions to the company. Both men make their way to the bathroom and turn on the shower. The first man hops in and begins to let the perfectly warm water run down his head and body. He bends down and blissfully picks up a couple of squirt toys that the kids didn't get picked up from the night before, and he smiles at the thought of those kids. The second man hops in the shower, grumbles to himself that the water's not quite warm enough, and then steps on a bath toy and thinks, oh my gosh, why can't these kids clean up after themselves after they get done with their bath? After a shower and a shave, both men make their way to their closets. Time to get dressed. The first man gazes at his many fine suits, his beautiful shirts with their gorgeous patterns, and his beautiful collection of silk ties. He dresses and takes a glance in the mirror and thinks, not too bad. The second man After opening his closet, looks at his limited suit selection, his shirts that feel too familiar and too old, and his ties, a few of which have barely noticeable stains. And he pushes those suits over and grabs a pair of khakis and a polo shirt, both that seem like they're a little too tight, and he throws them on, headed off to work thinking, I'll work at a job I hate, so I might as well be a little more comfortable. Both men's families awake for the day. The first man greets them and showers each with love, hugs and kisses and excitedly dishes them up their breakfast. And he asks them questions like, how'd you sleep? Did you have good dreams? Did you miss me because I missed you? Man number 2 also greets his family with love and hugs and kisses, but is immediately taken back by how loud the kids seem to be talking. And he tries to quiet them as he reluctantly gets bowls and cereal for them. He hopes to move quickly so he can just quickly get out the door and back to his quiet office. The first man tries to do a little extra and squeeze out a few extra minutes in the house with his family before he leaves. The second man tries to find an excuse why he's got to leave right away. In their own time, both men grab their laptops, kiss their wives, and kiss the kids goodbye and walk out the door to their cars. The first man opens his door to his comfortable, sporty sedan and fires up the engine. He looks at the gas gauge. He's almost on empty, but he's got plenty to get to work. So he powers on the radio so he can take advantage of a few extra minutes to listen to a book on success. And he pulls out his phone to take a brief glance at the bank account. He sees the numbers reflecting his balances and feels an overwhelming gratitude for the incredible abundance that he and his family enjoy. He backs out of the driveway and goes on his way to create an even more amazing day, spending the day providing tremendous value for great people where he's doing his dream work and living his dream job. The second man opens the door to his sedan and is once again reminded that it's not the car he's dreamt of, and it doesn't even have all the bells and whistles that he wanted. He fires up the engine, looks at the gas gauge, and feels bugged that the gas is so low. He realizes he'll probably need gas soon, even though he has enough to get to work. So he pulls out his phone and looks at his bank account because he's going to have to buy gas later that day. He notices, there's some money in there, but it's not nearly enough. At least not for where he visualized his life being at this point right now. And it's a reminder of his pointless job where he works for pennies. He pulls out of the driveway, wondering what will go wrong that day and how bad it will be. So here's a question. What's the difference between the two men? I want you to just think about that for a moment. Where are they different, right? Remember I told you I want you to think about where are they different, where are they similar? Let's discuss some of them briefly, okay? Where are they different? Well, one lives in a nice home, one lives in a crappy home, right? You pretty much gathered that. One of them is really healthy and feels awesome. The other one is kind of like overweight, not feeling real great about himself. One of them, they both seem to really love their families, but one is kind of like taken back by how loud the kids are. He seems like he gets bugged with the little ones, while man number 1 seems like he's generally just super full of joy that he's got his kids and whatever's going on. It sounds like both of them have jobs. One works this great job and he loves it, and the other one kind of hates his job, feels like he doesn't get paid enough. And both of them seem like they've got families, wives, kids, houses, all that. They both leave probably the same time every day. They both get into their car, but one guy has his dream car, and the other one has a car that, he doesn't really love. The first man seems like he has a lot of money, plenty of abundance, seems like he really enjoys his life. And the second guy seems like he's kind of poor, maybe living in poverty, close to it, maybe barely able to keep up with the bills, I don't know. The other difference that I noticed is man number 1 seems like he's going to leave that day with a totally different feeling, like, I'm going to go and serve and provide value. And man number 2 is like, what's going to go wrong today? And, I didn't tell you before, but I actually know both of these men. This is a true story. And there's one difference, major difference between the two of them, and I hope that you caught it. Because although their lives are different and there's some similarities, both live in a 5-bed, 2-bath home, both have jobs, yada, yada, yada. There's one main thing that separates the two of them. And I hope you caught it. And if you didn't, I'm going to give it to you right now. It was gratitude. See, here's how I know that that's the main difference between both of those men. I told you it was a true story. It is. Because both of those men are me. I lived my life as man number 2 for a really long time. I had this incredible life and this amazing wife and this thing that I did. I was starting this company and there was all this cool stuff that was supposed to be happening. But you know what? It was never enough. The car was never good enough. The money was never abundant enough. Nothing was good enough. It was always a source for me to complain and feel like a victim. Life was rolling me over. I wasn't controlling life. It was controlling me. And you're going to hear in a little bit what my story was in my journey that took me from man number 2 to becoming man number 1. And the big discovery was that life that I was living exactly as it was, exactly as I had it in that moment, could be made instantly better, instantly, with one simple idea and one simple principle: gratitude. I'm both men, living in the same house, with the same family, driving the same car, with the same amount of money in that bank account. But I spent a lot of time looking at that money and just feeling like it was never going to be enough. It was when I shifted and simply became thankful that if there was $5 in the account, couldn't I just be thankful there wasn't 4? If the house wasn't perfect, couldn't I be thankful I had a house? If the kids were super loud, couldn't I just be thankful I had kids? The job wasn't perfect, couldn't I be thankful I had a job? When that shifted, my life shifted. Friends, where we're going to go from here is I'm going to give you exactly how I arrived at being able to flip the gratitude switch and change my life completely. And I'm going to give you the definitive 4-step formula so that you can do it in your life, so you can move from man or woman number 1 to man or woman number 2. Are you ready? Are you ready to rock? The assignment for this part is I want you to write down 10 areas in your life. And I want you to look at those areas, okay? And I want you to see how in those areas you've treated them like man number 1 and how you've treated them like man number 2. Here's an example. If you have a home, have you ever been discontent with it? If you have, write down, sometimes I don't feel my home is big enough. But then have there been times when you just felt awesome about your home? Then right on the other side, what man number 1 would say, which is, I'm just thankful to have a roof over my head. I want you to list 10 areas of your life. List them as if you were interacting with them like man number 1, and then list them like you were interacting with them as man number 2, the positive and the negative. And I will see you on the next module.